This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Are you ready to dig into Chapter 15, A Pile of Sand?
Quite. Let's do this.
Do you like that little dig pun there?
I did. I dig it.
God. Oh, let's see if we can come up with some deeper jokes. Alright, so this chapter, man, it's, I think the reason it's called the Pile of Sands is Jordan's just leaving us all these hints in a pile of, there's just piles and piles and piles of hints in this one.
Yeah. So much setup. So many gleaming, glittery clues to dig into your brain and be itchy.
And I love some of these prophecies.
Oh my god, yes.
Why is it the Aiel spear and dagger? Sorry, shield and spear.
Yeah. I think it's because there's so much of this is about how Egwene is learning from the Aiel. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Egwene as a Wise One student, as an apprentice development in this chapter. A lot of Jiito internalization and how she's deciding to break the rules and kind of do her little, like, I'm really a wise one, I know as good as you, right. I think.
No, I like that. And we just know it's an Aiel chapter, is basically what that indicates.
Yeah, there's a lot of a strong Aiel-ness that carries for the rest of the book in this chapter. Definitely.
And of course, the literal pile of sand, they make one of the Gawyn go search through it. Gawyn search through it till she finds the single red grain, which may or may not be in there, or there's probably a couple. And
if it's not the one I seek, you have to go do it again.
Which is basically her saying, I'm going to make her look through individual grains of sand until she gives up being Gawyn.
Right, she's trying to shame her back to her honor. Very Aiel thing to do.
Right, is great foreshadowing for what they did to Aviendha.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because this only works on someone who's been brought up as a apprentice. Otherwise, it's just like that song treatment. Right.
Yeah, useless labor is that's what the song can never do anything that actually produces anything or makes anything. Nothing they can ever be proud of.
Yeah, exactly. And so it works as an object lesson on apprentices because they've been brought up in all of this other learning. But for a Gawyn, it's just repeatedly slapping them in the face.
Right. Well, let me read us in.
Do it.
Egwene's eyes opened, staring at nothing. For a moment, she lay on her bedding, idly fingering the great serpent ring on its thong around her neck. Wearing it on her hand caused too many odd looks. Easier to fit in as a student of the Wise Ones if no one thought of her as an Aes Sedai. Which she was not, of course. She was accepted, yet had pretended to be Aes Sedai so long, she sometimes almost forgot that she was not. A bit of early sunlight crept in at the door flap, barely lighting the tent's interior. She might as well not have slept at all, and her temples were throbbing. Since the day Lanfear had nearly killed her, and Aviendha, the day the Forsaken and Moraine had killed each other, her head always hurt after a visit to Tel'aran'rhiod, though never enough to be a real bother. Anyway, back home, Nyneave had taught her something of herbs, and she had managed to find a few of the right sort here in Cairhien. Sleepwell root would make her drowsy, or maybe, as weary as she was, it might put her under for hours, but it would clear any vestige of a headache. Climbing to her feet, she straightened her twisted, sweat-soaked shift and padded across layered carpets to the wash basin, a carved crystal bowl that had probably once held wine punch for some nobleman. In any case, it held plain water as well as the blue-glazed pitcher did. Water that hardly felt cool at all when she splashed it on her face. Her gaze met her own eyes in the small, gilt-framed mirror propped against the dark tent wall, and her cheeks crimsoned. I'll stop there.
That is such an Egwene passage. That just says so much about her in that opening passage.
And don't forget, she just got caught up in Gawyn's dream, and had quite passionate dream sex.
Yeah. She's not a virgin anymore, in any meaningful sense of the word.
Well, that's I do think that's up for debate, because here she does say she remembers everything, but it's just a dream. It's not Tel'aran'rhiod where it actually happens to you.
But she got the education.
Fair enough.
She has the perspectives granted by no longer being a virgin.
I don't know. That's one of those things where I wonder how realistic dream sex is, right? In the same way that, like, you just skip over the different... Sex is never quite as smooth as it goes in dreams, right?
That's very true. Especially
that's very
first-time
true.
sex. That's a whole thing. Yes, everyone here knows what I'm talking about.
Yes, we all... Well, everyone... Yeah.
I hope so, anyway.
Well, I'm not making assumptions about people's sexuality and how far along they are in their journey.
That's fair.
But those of you who have had sex, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's one of those things where you get to skip the details in a dream. You just pop from one to the next. And this was Gawyn's dream, right? I do think she had no agency in what happened.
Correct. Her subconscious was helping drive, but that was about it. Yeah, it does depend how much Gawyn knows about sex, but I'm going to go with he's a goody two-shoes on the sexual front at this point.
That is a good question. I don't know. Between him and Galad, they're both very pretty boys. They get lots of attention. There's no reason why they could have... I don't see why they would have remained celibate.
Yeah, I just figured the puritanical nature of Andor. I feel like that lesson would have been applied equally because Robert Jordan tries to make this world a little more feminist and a little bit off from our traditional world. I think that the puritanicalness would have applied to men as much as women in Andor, possibly, at least in terms of how more gays talked about sex and responsibilities to her children.
I can see, yes, where most likely she instilled the no sex before marriage value.
I mean, that's just my headcanon. It just feels right. But...
It does. Yeah, I don't have a lot of evidence for that, but I don't think there's... I think if I put my money down, it would be on the puritanical boys.
Yeah, but I do think they did actually possibly have sex because certain embarrassing events do just not occur in her recollections of it. She's like, I'm going to just replay this dream without certain things happening. And that makes me think that, like, there was some actual sex. But... I don't know. It also could be she's such a puritanical person that even, showing some ankle was embarrassing. So
Right. Who knows? And she's certainly replaying the dream in her own head. Gawyn thinks of himself as uglier than she sees him, but that's just true of all. Like, everyone sees themselves as less attractive than they actually are. And that's same thing with her. Like, she sees him as much more attractive because she's attracted to him.
Right.
And he sees her as very attractive. She's very attractive, but he's attracted to her.
Right. And it is interesting that she focuses so much on the more romantic sides of that attraction and less on the lustful sides of it, because I've seen some pretty compelling arguments that Egwene makes more sense as, like, an asexual person who's just not super into that side of things because she's so ambition driven. And I feel like this passage really supports that because she's like, just kiss me and read me poetry. Don't do all that weird whatever that was because we were both virgins and it was weird. Like, the headcanon works for me. It's just headcanon.
I think she enjoyed herself too much to be asexual. She's embarrassed about it, but...
Yeah, I don't know.
I can see where she's very ambition-driven and wouldn't want to give up any of that for a man, but I don't think that translates into asexual.
No, not necessarily. I just think that this supports the hypothesis. Well, I don't know. I've read the argument and been strongly compelled by it, so I'm looking for things to support that headcanon. I do think that the dream could enhance romance pretty well, right? Just sort of, yeah, everything works in a dream, right?
Yeah.
And also, I want to point out that this is the dream that may or may not have changed the trajectory of their entire relationship. If she, dream hypnotized herself into being overly in love with him, this was the dream that happened in. And she's even here saying, I had no choice. Right.
She got pulled into it. And here's where I dismissed that because I was like, well, they have to be attracted to each other for those bubbles to pull in. But here, Amis specifically says, that person only has to be attracted to you. It only has to be a one-way attraction. It just has to be strong enough.
Yeah, it's easier if it's mutual, but one way at a certain strength does do the trick.
But while she was asleep, that's not the only dream she had, right? She also had a bunch of these prophetic dreams, and I wasn't sure if you're ready to go into that. Is there anything else you had to say about Egwene's, just the Gawyn, Egwene, wet dream?
No, I think I've stuck my foot in my mouth sufficiently. at this point.
It's such a weird thing because it is just a dream, which makes it not real, but at the same time, she had no choice in it. And
some weird agency things happening there.
Right.
But, you know, there's a lot of headcanon I'm still working on for explaining all of this to my satisfaction. So
I mean, I get the feeling that she was attracted to him, you know, beforehand entirely. And we've seen that. You know, there was early on in the podcast we were doing a lot of when does she switch from Galad to Gawyn in her attractiveness. And I think that we've passed that point a while ago.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, I can't believe that this dream is what triggers it. I'm sure it amplifies it, right? But just like any interaction with somebody, when you share an experience with somebody who you're attracted to, that brings you closer to them. That doesn't mean that's compulsion or altering your mind or anything like that. It's just they shared a dream, and that makes them more attracted to each other.
But yeah, I'm ready to go into her dreams because it starts with a repetition of Min's vision, one of Min's flickery visions. She has a dream that also is flickery and inconsistent in that same way.
Twice, right on top of another, she dreamed of taking him by the shoulders and trying to turn him to face the other way against his will. Once he brushed her hands away roughly. The other time, she was somehow stronger than he. The two blended together hazily. In another, he began to swing a door closed on her, and she knew if that narrowing gap of light vanished, she was dead.
Mm-hmm. Which I think that's their death. I think that's a dream.
You think that's what happened?
Yeah, I think that's a dream of her trying to get to him as he's dying, which is really sad. Because she does die as a result.
Yes. And that's what I've always wondered. Like, we see her death as a result, but I think that that is incidental, if that makes sense.
Incidental to what as the main act?
Yeah, this is hard to explain. But I've been thinking about this a little bit because I've been thinking about that Min's vision in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And this weird choice. So I think that if Gawyn had made the other choice, he would have actually killed Egwene himself. I think that's what this is portraying.
Really?
That either he was going to become Egwene's warder, or in an effort to take revenge on Rand, he would have turned, and as his, like, part of being support for Elaida, right? He would have been part of the White Tower, and that maybe in some battle he would have killed Egwene.
Huh. I had not considered that.
So I do think that we see the other side of that, where he does become her warder, and he becomes part. He's on her side, and then she dies incidentally. Yeah,
because there's a lot of very interesting choices, and Gawyn is. I mean, Gareth Bryn points it out. Gawyn is a very unique character in that he doesn't like following. So whatever choice he makes, he's going to make it like 110% and be totally difficult to turn from it. So I can see that him being very one way or the other. He's either going to die for Egwene or Egwene's going to die on his sword. That fits him.
To me, that seems to be the two alternatives, yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking more of the narrowing gap of light as being the dream of her trying to get to him, and then he dies, and she dies as a direct result of not making it in time.
Sure.
But the two where she's trying to turn him one way or the other and brushes his hands away, yeah, that there's a lot of choices that could apply to.
Right, and the door swinging closed basically means he doesn't trust her anymore. And if he closes that door, because even if he just never came back to her in the tower, she would have been killed by
oh shit
the blood knives.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe it's less of a literal narrowing gap. Yeah. There's a lot of ways that could go that work.
Yeah, it is one of those sort of vague prophecies that doesn't have one point exactly to it.
But the fact that it duplicates Min's uncertainty makes it really important.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. No, there's very much a choice that he has.
So for all that we like to hate on Gawyn, we also do have to acknowledge that he had some really powerful choices in his hands. And that means he was important and not just a red herring to beat up on constantly. Or maybe he's also that. I don't know.
All right, the next one. We've got Perrin, which is just a standard Perrin prophecy, right? The Hawk and the Falcon, which we know is Elayne, and Fael, and him throwing the axe away, and then it follows him around everywhere. Him trying to reject violence, but no matter what happens, he continues.
Yep, same with the Tinker. He can't get away from that.
Because it's her, so I don't believe that's Aram. I think that's his mother, calling him to be peaceful. and him running from peace there.
Oh, so she called for him to come.
She called for him.
Oh, shit. How did I never notice?
So that's not Aram, that's Aram's mother.
Well, I always for some reason assumed that the she was Egwene because it's Egwene's POV, but that makes literally no sense. That makes a billion times more sense if it's Isla. Because she's calling to Perrin and to Aram, right? Aram follows Perrin down his path, and Ayla's like, both of you come back, you know? She's very sad about Perrin having not given up the axe and, like, all of that, so... Yeah, I like that way better.
That's a good point. Then we have Mat marrying the... Why are there 2 ravens here?
Well, there's 2 ravens on his Ashendare.
Okay.
And there's 2 meanings for ravens because he's got the Ashendare and the Shanchan.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the Imperial servants have a pair of tattoos.
Sure, but although that's usually a raven in a tower... I was thinking just memory and thought, the name of Odin's 2 ravens.
Yeah, because those are on the Ashendare.
In another, a woman face shrouded in shadow beckoned him towards great danger. I couldn't figure out, that was a rough one. Who's beckoning Mat towards grave danger? A woman with a face shrouded is... Well, Tuon shows up with a shroud on her face.
Yeah, Gawyn did not know what, only that it was monstrous. That could be, I'm thinking it's either guns or Damani. So I'm thinking it's either Aludra or Tuon.
It could also be a Forsaken trying to manipulate him, but I can't think of an example, really, where a female Forsaken is manipulating Mat.
Not successfully. No.
Not successfully.
But I really do... Although Aludra doesn't have a lot of, like, shadowy, hooded, veiled stuff going on, she's a very straightforward engineer out for revenge. I still think that the monstrosity of gunpowder, the way that Brigida makes a big deal out of the world just changed... That whole thing, I feel like, you know, Aludra's the one that ushers that in. So a woman beckoning Mat, be like, "Hey, I got the bang bangs. I got military grade bang bangs." That's monstrous. Monstrous things happen as a result.
I like Tuon more because she comes in with a shroud.
Tuon and being under the veil. So you think that the monstrous thing is like supporting the Shanchan Empire and not dismantling slavery day one?
Mm-hmm. And just uniting with the Shanchan, which of course Egwene thinks is monstrous.
Right.
Because she thinks the Shanchan are monstrous.
Yeah, the shroud for Tuon being under the veil, it makes a lot more sense than Aludra, although I like the Aludra interpretation.
I do like the Aludra interpretation as well, yeah.
If we're trying to make every detail stick, Tuon fits better.
Then we've got some Rand visions, Elayne forcing him to his knees, and then Elayne and Min and Avienda each... laying a hand on him, so I assume those are just the bondings.
And also Elayne sort of asserting her autonomy as the Queen of Andor.
And bonding him, I think, because she's the one who mostly does the bonding, maybe? Yeah. But yeah, asserting herself as the autonomous one.
You know, tearing down his banners, taking control of how the Black Tower interacts with her land. She does a lot of, like, back off, Dragon Reborn, I've got this portion. And that's very unique to her among the 3.
And then this next one, which is super important, which is him walking towards a mountain. Something crunched beneath his boots. She stirred and whimpered. The crunching things were the seals on the Dark One's prison, shattering with his every step.
Because she is the watcher of the seals, and she gets the heebie-jeebies when the Dragon Reborn wants to break them prematurely.
Yeah, and Moiraine particularly brings that up to her and says, "You've seen it, daughter, haven't you? Or you've seen it, mother. You've seen him breaking the seals." And she's like, "Yeah, I've seen him walking on them." So this is sort of the vision that convinces her that Rand does need to break the seals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's lots of dreams of him breaking the seals that she sees, and I think that this is one of our hints that it's like she's important to that. She's not seeing that because it's important in general. She's seeing because it's important to her.
And he's walking towards the mountain, which we know is Sheol.
Yeah, naturally. And then her dreams just spiral off into paranoia, which is hilarious to analyze in its own way. And it's also kind of true. Like, there's still true stuff in it, but it's more self-centered.
Yeah, I was wondering how much of this was prophecy. I mean, Rand kippering through the streets of Carian, laughing as he blasted buildings and people. I mean, I don't think he actually does that, right?
No. He doesn't do that in Carian, but he performs similar actions right before Veins of Gold, when he almost takes out... What is it?
The Shanchan?
Abu Dar. He almost takes out the Shanchan and Abu Dar, and he, like, falls on the street and all of that. So I feel like this is referencing the fact that he's going to be that kind of a wild card at some point, where he will be like a true mad channeler, like running around blasting shit without much regard for people. Like, yeah, kind of basically happens, if not in Kyrian.
But the rest of this just seems to be all fear dreams.
I think, actually...
All right, well, are you going to actually me?
Yeah, I think that when she has the dream about being dragged before a table of hooded women and all of that, that is a dream of becoming Amerlin. It's flavored with all the Black Sisters that she's met, and it has all the sinister overtones, but she is more or less kidnapped, dragged before a council of women, and forced into a dangerous position. And also, I think we see Egwene here. A hard-faced Seanchan woman handed her a silvery bracelet and a necklace connected by a silvery leash.
Okay.
She just hands it to her. Like, it doesn't say a whole lot about what that means, but Egwene comes with the story of how she failed with the sad bracelets.
Right.
And the potential to be a female warder that gets Egwene through another half hour of the last battle. I feel like every time we see a hard-faced or mysterious Seanchan woman, it's hints about Egwene.
I'm nodding to that.
Other than that, I think it's all paranoia.
And so she wakes up and...
Gawyn was poking her.
Yeah. She sort of blends that together into dreams, as you tend to do. And Gawyn is just a servant?
She's a Gai'Shine who has been taken by the bleakness.
No, how dare I call her a servant? Sorry.
Yeah, honestly.
Right.
Go run around the camp 50 times.
I have toe.
But she has been taken by the bleakness in such a way that she refuses to put off the white.
Her refusal was an act of stubborn pride and defiance, as much as any man refusing to retreat from 10 enemies.
Such tangles the Aiel's Ji'ito got them into.
I know.
Oh.
And so then basically the next thing I have is the three wise ones walking in. The three dreamwalkers.
Same.
And I think the most important thing is, how could she otherwise? I tried to look in on her dreams 3 times last night and found nothing. No one can sleep well if they do not dream. It's like, well, whoops.
Yeah.
Someone was telling me they suspected the wise ones knew she was sneaking around behind their backs.
I think I think I proposed that in a chat channel the other day, because it's just like, they are real fucking fooled by her, aren't they?
Looking back, though, it's hard for them. I think they would have reacted differently if they knew. I don't see any reason for them to hide it if they figured it out.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And also, the whole headache thing, like, I think that they were right that she shouldn't have been going into Telerin Riad. I don't know what the fuck those headaches are doing, but they've got to be aging her, wearing her out, doing something bad to her that would probably show up later in life, if she hadn't Flame of Tarvalent herself.
Yeah, flame out. Yeah, I wonder if maybe just she would have been able to come back faster if she'd actually rested.
Yeah, or something. I feel like their concern over the headaches is so genuine that they wouldn't, where they might have let her go her own way if they thought she was ready, they genuinely don't think she's ready because of the headaches that she's being a fucking stubborn Two Rivers mule about. Oh my god. She's like, I just get migraines every day. It's no big deal. I'm like, sit your fucking ass down. Migraines aren't a big deal.
Well, she can't learn if she's not going, and that's her whole thing, is like she pushes herself to the breaking point over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Just continually breaks herself.
It hurts so much.
So here's where we get the quote about finding the red grain in the pile of sand.
Yeah. No, yeah, and this is Elayne trying to getting back to her usual prickly self for this one stubborn Gai'Shine.
Who's technically was hers responsibility, as she said. And so she's like, I'm sick of her. She needs to stop being Gai'Shine. I'm going to basically make her do pointless work until she finally figures out that she does not need to be Gai'Shine anymore.
Yeah.
But I love the analogy of just like where we were able to go through all those prophecies and find little grains of sand, little nuggets of truth in them. I feel like that's Jordan's little nod to us in this chapter. Be like, yes, find the spoilers, find the little red grains of sand.
For
and
sure.
If they're not the ones I like, I'm going to send you back to the next chapter.
I think also we see a lot of grains of sand pointing towards Egwene. I've said this before for other chapters, but we keep seeing Egwene thinking of the Aes Sedai as her charges. She thinks about who's going to go into what Aja. She here gets annoyed that Nyneave and Elayne have been replaced by Aes Sedai at the meetings. Like, she naturally steps into a position of, I should be in charge. She assumes she knows best and doesn't wait for anyone to tell her so.
That's a good point, yeah.
She hasn't been summoned to Saladar yet. We have no idea she's going to become Amyrlin. And yet, it's kind of obvious that she's already thinking in the ways that will do her in good stead when she is Amyrlin.
And I think that's the Aiel training. They have trained her to think for herself, to think that she knows best. That's something that their training has instilled, is like, you have to depend on your own judgment. You have to assume you know best.
Which, arguably, she was already like that from the get-go. But yeah, very much so. Her wise one-ness is very strong. They teach her those lessons. And she becomes a wise one in the dream when she defeats the Adam. That's when she goes full wise one, which is a beautiful moment.
We get a little bit about the bleakness here, and Rand revealing the toe of the people.
I agree with Egwene that it's interesting that the Aiel don't blame him. I'm with her on that.
Well, because, I mean, he's their savior, right? He's the only thing that's going to keep them from being completely eliminated. And in ways, he is going to destroy them, because he destroys their culture, right? No longer are they a people of nomadic warriors after Rand gets through with them. And that will change them. They will no longer be the Aiel they were.
Yeah, I mean, some of them live in Roidion, for fuck's sake.
They have a city, a real city, and they're going to be police officers, basically.
Yeah.
Walking the beat. I wonder if that's how that's going to change them.
More than any Terangrial trip into the future can tell.
Right. So there's a meeting with the Aes Sedai and the Wise Ones. They relate some of the details. I didn't find anything interesting there.
Just I have to laugh at the snake thing.
Oh, yeah.
Scarlet Puffer versus Red Adder. Wise Ones have a vicious sense of humor, and I love it. Because she wasn't in any danger. There's totally non-venomous snakes, so they're fine. But it's still like, that's a mean fucking prank.
Probably not so much in the Aiel waste, but yeah, I can see where the cultural difference would make a big difference.
Yeah.
But, you know, also I think they were very happy to put a snake down her dress.
Yeah. We also are seeing again Egwene's utter devotion to breaking the rules and being terrified that she'll be found out breaking the rules, because her punishment will be so much worse. She'll be denied teaching.
Right. It's like, okay. And she gives us a bit of a timeline here that the first 10 days after Lanfear hit her were bad enough. She couldn't even think without her head splitting.
Yeah, I wonder if she would have had headaches for the rest of her life because of this.
Well, you know, I think the headaches do go away.
That's true.
Halima brings them back, but I think that's entirely 100% Halima.
Yeah, which means that effectively Egwene spends most of this series in a state of some level of head pain, and that's awful.
Yeah. No, I mean, the White Tower must have been a relief, because then she was just getting, you know, if all that hurts is your ass, like, that's probably a relief from the headaches.
I have never had a true migraine, but I have had borderline almost migraines, and I mean, they suck.
My mother suffered from migraines, and she was miserable most of my young life.
Ugh,
yeah, it's bad.
And my mom said that she would rather go through childbirth again than have a migraine. And I'm like, okay, that is a standard. Holy shit.
No, the migraines are miserable and pounding, and everything hurts. The light, the noise, all that kind of stuff. It's not something you want.
So, you know, sometimes I get a little annoyed at Egwene for being so focused and stuff, and it's like, well, if you think about it, more times than not, she has a headache in any given scene throughout the series.
There is something about our main characters who are just in constant pain and just keep going anyway. Just constant headaches, Rand just constantly in pain.
Yeah.
With the wounds in his side.
I would not make a good savior of the world if being in constant pain was a requirement.
No.
I'd be like, end this thing. I'm done. It's bullshit.
Yeah. That's one thing he doesn't talk a lot about, is the way that chronic pain really affects your ability to get things done. Mm-hmm. People who are in chronic pain can't really think about anything else.
No.
Also, being young does make up for some of that, right? Like, you can just sort of power through it when you're...
No. I've always been a baby.
20. No? Yeah?
I've always been a complete and utter baby.
I feel like there were times when I was young where I'd hurt myself, and I was like, you know what? I didn't rip my rotator cuff. I think I'm just going to keep swimming for the next 5 years. And now I'm like, oh my god, every time I move my arm like that, it hurts a lot. How did I not notice that?
Yeah, Yeah, no, I have never been able to be that hard on my body. I also never pulled off overnighters doing college or high school or anything. It's like, no, I like sleeping. I don't care that I'm 18. I want more sleep.
Actually, it's probably easier to do it now than it would at 18, just because, like, I needed so much sleep at 18.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, seriously. I need way less sleep now.
Don't get me wrong, I still like sleep, and I sleep a lot. Oh, man. So I tweaked my neck yesterday, so I took a muscle relaxant. Yeah. I may be a little slow today because, like I said, I took the muscle relaxant this morning, and I slept through most of the day until about 4.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. It was like, I woke up this morning I went to, speaking of headaches, you know, I felt that I tweaked my neck yesterday, and I was like, oh, I'm kind of in some pain. I took some Advil, I went to bed. When I woke up this morning, I was like, oh, I feel good. And then I lifted my head off the pillow, and my entire neck spasmed. Everything froze up. Ooh. Like, I just, massive headache front to back. Like, screamed in pain. Travis was like, are you okay? Like, I was like, oh my God. Like, it really, all the muscles in my neck just went crazy. So he was like, I was in just massive pain. So he gave me a muscle relaxant. And that helped him massively. I'm still a little drowsy. Like, I took it this morning, and I'm just like, woo, I'm still a little woozy, surprisingly.
Yikes.
Yeah, because muscle relaxants always knock me the fuck out.
I mean, as they should.
Right.
It is kind of the point.
I was wondering, I mean, is it the point to make you pass out? I thought it was just to let you relax.
I mean, you're very relaxed when you're asleep.
That's a good point.
I don't know. I self-medicate too much to have solid opinions on this.
You and me both. Back to the book. We got off on a headache tangent there.
Yeah. Moral of the story is headaches blow.
Oh, they're terrible. You know the best way to get rid of headaches?
Drop an anvil on your foot?
I was going to say just cut your head off.
Oh, that would work too. Yeah.
Yep. No more headaches. Amputation. Apply a tourniquet to the neck until headaches stop.
Yeah, I'm going to pass on that. I might be a baby about pain, but I do like experiencing something.
The next thing I have is her question about being pulled in.
Yeah, that's pretty much where it's at, is this whole how do dream work is thing.
She asks. Egwene chose her words carefully and went on with her dressing, casually in the same white algoed blouse and bulky wool skirt the Wise Ones wore. Is it possible to be pulled into someone's dream against your will? Of course not, Amy said, not unless your touch is all thumbs. But right on top of that, Bear said, not unless there's a strong emotion involved. If you try to watch the dream of someone who loves or hates you, you can be pulled in. Or if you love or hate them. So this is, I assume by watching the dreams there, she means that thing where you go up and you actually, like, touch them, but don't go into them.
Right.
And so, if that person loves or hates you, or you love or hate them, you can be just pulled into that dream when you touch it.
Right, so you cannot spy on someone you have very strong feelings about. You just can't do it.
Well, what if you don't try and look at it? Basically, what if you're not touching it? Can you still get pulled in? And that's where she says, if the emotion was very strong, love or hate so great it left room for nothing else, you could be drawn in merely by letting yourself be aware of the other's dream. And it still seems that could be one-sided.
I think Gawyn drew his dream to her. He closed that distance. And then Egwene not immediately shutting it down was enough to get pulled in.
Right. Do you think if she'd fled right away, she could have escaped it? Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think if she had recognized it was Gawyn's dream and been like, I am not fucking with that, she would have totally just, walked away, so to speak.
Right.
And not had that experience. But him coming to her attention, like that was the point when she had a real choice. Everything after that was effectively her looking in just by being curious about what the fuck was happening. And it's so weird. It's such a bizarre invasion of, like, your autonomy and your privacy and your consent that, like, your subconscious or someone else's subconscious could, like, do that. It's gross.
I mean, that's why, looking in on someone's dreams is weird.
Yeah, and I like the little, like, side-eye shaming that they give to Elayne here, being like, and this is why one would never hypothetically do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just like, no, this is actually a very inappropriate use of your dream skills. Don't do it.
They talk a little bit about the legend of Mora, who was 300 years old.
Surely even Aes Sedai do not live that long. Let's talk to Olivia
some
about
of them
that.
do. Yeah.
Or Cadswain, for that matter.
And interesting here, they also say, they slow in aging, but they never get the ageless face. Mm-hmm. And that's still, it is a little frustrating that our characters still haven't put together that the ageless face is different than the slowing.
Yeah, that's a really slow, it's like, come on, everyone else has figured that out by now.
In a lot of ways, I didn't realize they hadn't figured it out until they're like, oh, we get it now. I was like, wait, you hadn't before?
Right.
Okay. I thought that was pretty obvious, but yeah, oh well. Even first-time readers, like...
Yeah, totally.
I've seen a lot of people who are like, oh, it's totally the Oath Rod that does that. Like, he drops so many hints.
So many.
But they don't get it until they start talking to the kin.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is because they have a lot of prohibitions around thinking about it that we don't, as readers. Mm-hmm. We're just like, that's a silly prohibition. Let's think about it.
And she even says in here, like, there's definitely something against... It's against tradition to ask. It's very rude to ask an Aes Sedai her age. You would never do that.
I think it's cool that Egwene is learning these stories about Mora, who, like, moved a mountain and all this spectacular stuff. And, I mean, frankly, the way that Egwene goes out in a blaze of glory after everything she does, like, she's going to spawn as many legends as someone like Mora or Cadswain.
What do you think about Mora as a candidate for Nakomi?
Ooh. Shoot. When did she live? Bear actually knew her?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, ooh. That is an interesting candidate. Because I don't think the timeline works, but nothing about Nakomi makes sense. So why not? Metal Datura is asking if we know how she dies. And yes, she dies of a blood snake bite, which is a stupid way for a 300-year-old wise one to die.
Well, they just get bit sometimes. That's the bad thing. Blood snakes are real easy to step on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Mora doesn't come up again. I would have a hard time with him just introducing this character once on a throwaway line and then making her Comey. But it just, as I was reading this, I was like, powerful dreamwalker who lived recently and died and actually, probably could still be alive if she hadn't been bitten by the blood snake. So
Nakomi's line about how my sept is so far away really makes, she has to be Jen, and Mora obviously isn't Jen.
I agree with that, yes.
But I like it anyway, because she literally moved mountains. We never learn anything except that she supposedly moved a mountain, which Egwene arguably literally moves mountains. So does Moraine.
It's possible she had access to a Tarangriel, or an Ongriel.
To move mountains or to live so long?
To move mountains. I would assume the living so long is just being pretty powerful.
Yeah, probably. I bet she totally did, yeah. Like activated Tarangriel or something. Mm-hmm. Something surreal like that at this point has been turned over so many times it's moving a mountain.
And Bear has a normal lifespan, so she couldn't have died more than 80 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right, yeah, because Bear's not a channeler.
So, she very much could still technically be alive if the blood snake hadn't killed her.
Mm-hmm.
That was my only little... I was reading through that, I was like, ooh, she might be a cool Nakomi character. Not that I think there's any evidence for it, but, that would be... Again, and I do believe that Nakomi is Jen. The most wise ones are even the ones who can channel aren't very powerful, and so they only 300 is still pretty long-lived for most wise ones. But if she can move a mountain, I'm guessing she's more than powerful enough to live to like 600.
Yeah, she definitely sounds like a standard issue Aes Sedai strength, which should be like someone who probably would have been like Cadswain's strength, and Cadswain's approaching 300 and like, when am I going to die? So yeah, 600 would totally probably have made more sense. So yeah, Mora could totally... Or like Olivia, she's 400 and doesn't look anywhere near the end of her life, and she's stronger than everyone.
Yeah, I'm guessing she can go like 700-800. Because I think some of the strongest men live up to 800 was the sort of upper range that we heard on them.
That sounds right.
So then she asked a few more questions just to distract.
Yeah, trying to get away from dangerous topics. Mm-hmm. Asking about if you ever see other people in the dream, and kind of what regular people versus conscious dreamwalkers might look like, because she's been seeing Swan and Leanne all over the place.
She wished she knew what her own dreams meant, if they meant anything.
I'll tell you one thing it means. It means that lust is not the same as love, Egwene.
No, it's not.
Just because you had a wet dream with a cute boy does not mean he is the right one for you.
I love how we're all just like, ugh. this is a terrible relationship. This is a terrible idea. Don't do it. Don't. Even though, like, it seems, when I read this the first time, I'm like, oh, they're falling in love. It's so cute. They're going to be great as Aes Sedai and Warder. I can't wait to see. No. And it's
just no. Like, can't this not just be a summer camp fling? Why does this have to become a whole Warder thing?
Right. Well, because
Egwene does nothing by halves. That's why.
Yeah, there is that. She does throw herself into everything wholeheartedly. Yeah. I think her first relationship is going to be a marriage. Like,
right. That's very on brand for Egwene. And then this whole, like, did her dream convince her to act on a subconscious impulse? And is that her choice or is that not her choice? Stop thinking with a small head, Egwene. Yeah, sex negativity. It's bullshit. Sex positivity. That's what we need. Egwene is classic case of sex negativity going all kinds of awry. Egwene's still over here thinking that her dreams may or may not mean things. She's still doubting if her dreams actually mean anything. Egwene, your dreams mean so many things. So many things. Yes. Okay, so Metal Datura is saying, if I were the pattern, I would be so mad. Because Egwene and Rand and Perrin all get these prophetic dreams and visions, and only Egwene even tries to interpret them, and everyone doubts if they mean anything. The pattern's just over here head-desking really hard. Yeah.
They kind of look at Min's stuff, and Rand certainly looks at the Currython cycle, but yeah. The pattern's got to be like, it's right there on the fucking dream. Read it.
Right? How much more clearly can I spell this out?
It's like when I was a teacher, and I would just be like, please read the instructions. And the instructions would say things like, don't answer any of the questions. Go to the end, sign your name, and turn the paper in. And you'll get 100. And, like, I did that once, just because I was not a single person.
Yep.
Nope.
I experienced that in school also.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating as a teacher to, like, not have the active participation of your students. And then I get why students can't always actively participate, but, you know, especially in high school when they're forced to be there, you're like, I get it, but...
Yeah, for sure. So, Elayne.
We are back to Elayne dealing with the aftermath of a bubble of evil where all of the mundane objects came to life. Although, I guess there were swords and axes coming to life in the soldier camp.
Yeah, this is a weird one because it's not like it's just the metal objects. It's like the clothes and the furniture and the weapons and like everything gets animated.
Everything. Right. Whereas the one with Perrin where he fights the axe, those are just the weapons that come to life. And if you don't have a weapon around you, you're fine.
Yeah. Oh, I was thinking of the one when he's chasing Fael and the Shido and all the weapons come alive. Oh, no, that's actually after he gets Fael back because she saves Berylane. That's the one that's only the weapons. Because the Bubbles of Evil and Tyr is like the thing that each of the three boys needs to resolve rather than weapons per se.
Right. But it is his axe that comes alive. But that's just because it's his axe, not the weapons.
Right. But then later, much closer to the last battle, we have just the weapons. And then he's like, the hammer didn't come alive. And that's the distinct difference. And that whole conversation happens.
Right. Okay. Get my Bubbles of Evil mixed up, because there's 3 of them where weapons come to life.
It's a lot of Bubbles of Evil, and they're all chaotic. And I think, as Metal Datura is saying, like, the Dark One's touch is maybe getting stronger, so the effects are getting more surreal and specific.
And more frequent, definitely.
And happening to more than just Ta'Veren.
Yes. Or those around Ta'Veren. Although it's hard to know, because we spend so much time around Ta'Veren.
There's weird rumors from off.
There is this concentration of... Do you think Aes Sedai concentrating in one place has a similar effect of Ta'Veren, as in, like, providing an anchor for Bubbles of Evil to explode?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it follows this... I think it follows the same lines of force as Min's viewings.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that because they have all the images over their heads.
Yeah, they're more connected to the pattern in that weird way that allows for the miasma of entropy that is the Dark One to percolate along.
And also lets you be turned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then she oversees Leanne's little tricks with the dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting eyes and ears network.
Right. And I do want to take a moment and talk about something that I've been thinking about a lot, which is male affection and touch. That how A lot of men I know very rarely are touched.
Uh-huh.
And how a casual, placing, how powerful that can be. Because, and this is something that probably in our society we've definitely, like, said men aren't allowed to touch each other, and men aren't allowed to touch women, and there's all these, like, really large prohibitions against touching one another, and you have to ask permission. But what that means is a lot of times men go for years without being hugged or touched.
Yeah.
And that's something that can really drive a person crazy, and this use of Leanne using that sort of just casual touch in order to manipulate and control, while at the same time, like, these men are so happy. They're trotting away as happy as if handed a chest of gold, right? And that's something I've experienced, right? Where, like, sometimes just someone putting a hand on my arm, that makes my week.
Right. Yeah.
And Leanne's taking advantage of that, so.
Yeah, and that makes sense that Robert Jordan really definitely was exposed to a lot of the things that we now label as toxic masculinity, so it makes sense that he can write an entire culture that trades in that currency and have it make sense to him. Yeah, no, it's something that I have heard about a lot from a couple of male family members, just the lack of hugging and the lack of affectionate touch. Like, there's a lot of literature on this. It's really bad for you. Hugs are, like,
it's terrible for you.
Important,
yeah.
And especially with all the other emotional non-flexibility that men are given, to not even be able to, like, share a hug with a friend, to not be able to just, like, platonically sit on the couch and touch and have it, like, not be weird.
Yeah. No.
It's really toxic and harmful to all involved. It's not good for anybody.
And very hard to get past. Even knowing how toxic it is culturally, it's very hard to make a change.
Yeah, no, it's social and physical. It's a collective and personal sort of process, and it's really fucking unhealthy, but how do you solve it? Leanne is one strategy, I suppose, but it's hardly a cultural revolution. I had not thought of that. I've always wondered why the Damani strategy works. It always just seemed like some sort of weird male wish fulfillment nonsense, but now I'm seeing it's actually very genuine, not creepy wish fulfillment. Mm-hmm. It's actually a really wholesome wish fulfillment. Maybe
that's how I've always felt about it. Is just that, like, they're not trying to fuck her. That's the whole thing. Is like she's not saying that. Right. She's just giving affectionate touch, which is something men crave.
And that's what Elayne and all the others are wondering about. Is like, well, if I tried that, then the man would think I'd promised more than I had. Right. And we even see with Lyanna, that's a discussion that Damani women have to have with themselves and teach their daughters and stuff.
They do have to negotiate that, yeah.
Yeah, I had never thought of how Robert Jordan's criticism of toxic masculinity might be coming through and how he wrote the Damani. I like that. It's sad, but thanks for pointing it out.
And thinking about, like, why would men respond like that? Because, like, I know. I know why a guy would respond like that.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I just sort of figured that she was like a reverse James Bond kind of character, just getting all the boys to just hang on her arm and do her bidding, but that seems like a much shallower read than what you're going for with your actual lived experience.
Sure, yeah. Well, and I could be I could be projecting onto that as something that's like, he could have been just writing it as someone who was sexy and could get whatever she wanted just by being sexy, but I'm projecting the experiences I've had onto that.
Well, and he writes a whole culture for it. It's not just one individual. Like, there's a very real large thing there, and if it resonates with your experience, I think it's a valid interpretation, like, by definition.
And the chat is pointing 2 books to us.
Real Boys, Rescuing Our Sons from the Myths of Boyhood.
And then How Not to Be a Boy by Robert Webb.
Yeah, the first one was by William Pollack. So, yeah, I have those links open now. I will be reading into those.
Get basically a breakdown of who stayed up. Brigida, of course, stayed up because she's a warder, so she doesn't need to sleep.
Exactly. Elayne being snippy about it is so silly. She's a warder.
Right? And, Elayne was able to stay up late, and she probably did a lot of channeling last night, right? She's probably one of the most powerful channelers there, and even if she wasn't channeling herself, I'm sure she was in a circle for healing and stopping all the bubble of evil stuff. So she's been up for a while.
And I mean, it's totally fair. She shouldn't be coddled. She is way too powerful to be coddled too much. But she also would overdrive herself, and that's no good either.
Right, but they sent Nyneave to bed pretty early, whereas they kept Elayne up. working for a little bit longer. But Nyneave stayed awake the whole time.
Yeah, the paragraph of Nyneave, of Elayne reflecting on Nyneave is just like, it's so quintessential Nyneave. It's such Nyneave. Oh my god.
Yet, there she was when Elayne came in, balancing herself on the stool despite its now crooked leg, head nodding every 2 minutes, muttering about showing Theodrin, showing everyone.
Showing everyone.
Showing Theodrin, showing everyone. Fucking Nyneave.
So Nyneave.
That's so Nyneave.
I love her. She's like literally keeping herself awake with just sheer pique.
Mm-hmm. Pure Two Rivers stubbornness.
Yeah.
Wool-headed stubbornness.
And then I like that we actually see how that old saw about the Dark One's luck holds sometimes. Because Moghedien actually like just had a good night's sleep and was not affected by the bubble of evil at all.
I thought she was hiding under the bed when the bubble of evil started.
Yeah. Well, she was, I think she was asleep. But she just ducked under her bed and the bed didn't attack her. The bed sheets didn't attack her. Like, you know, I mean, we saw like sheets and furniture attacking other people, but Moggy just wakes up and sneaks into a corner and goes back to sleep.
Lucky little minx.
I'm guessing it's because she's evil enough that, you know, the vectors are just a little bit pointed away from her. For that,
right,
she doesn't
right.
need to be taken down in any chaotic or deliberate sense.
She doesn't draw the bubble to her at all.
Exactly. She's on the bubble side if such a thing exists.
This would be interesting. Do we ever see like a dark friend being attacked by a bubble of evil?
Well, there's times when crowds get attacked or like armies get affected, and you have to assume that there are dark friends in those groups. But I don't think we ever see an individual have an experience beyond this one.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume that they get left alone by bubbles of evil, given that we don't see contrary evidence.
I don't know.
Maybe we'll find a scene that proves one way or another. But I don't think so. I think that's just going to have to be an ambiguous headcanon.
I would assume they're random. I don't think the Dark One has any control over them, but I can see where sort of like a negative pressure maybe pushing out from a dark
That's
friend.
what I'm thinking. It's like a polarity thing, not deliberate.
Right, because they're both aligned with the Dark One, and as we see, like repels like,
mm-hmm.
and opposites attract, which is true for the evil of Shadow Logith and the evil of the Dark One. But if you're sworn to the Dark One, maybe the bubble of evil sort of bounces off of you.
Yeah, or like it's just easy for you to get away. You have almost Taviran-like ability to negotiate the situation as it goes down. But I'm assuming it's a very vague, non-deliberate thing. It's just evil has polarity.
And maybe the darker you are, the more effect it has. So Moghedien was safe, but maybe someone who's a minor dark friend would still feel the effects, because Moghedien's just so dark.
Yeah. She's more than your average run of dark friend.
Smarter than your average dark friend.
Well, that's debatable.
Does she steal picnic baskets? They're treating the rebel, or the Tower Aes Sedai well, and the girls are kind of pissed about that, but they're like, listen, an Aes Sedai is an Aes Sedai. We're going to honor her as an emissary, just like we'd honor any emissary from any country. That makes sense to me. For sure.
Yeah, I totally get the indignation, but it's like, heads of state are heads of state. That's what it is.
Even if they're assholes.
Yeah. It's just, this is politics. Deal with it.
We hear 7 dead here in the village, nearly 100 in the soldiers' camps. Again, with all the weapons coming alive.
No one to channel them or heal.
Yeah.
Like, that must have been horrific.
Right.
I mean, we see it later, but it's just, ugh.
Yeah, there's probably got to be... I mean, the fact that I said I can go down there and heal the injured has got to be a huge boon.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you imagine, like, the kind of long-term injuries swords cause? Just, like, hacking... The way people fought wars terrifies me. Like, the hacking and slashing and stuff is just...
Right? I have a sharp piece of metal that I'm swinging with the strength of my arm at your face.
Enjoy. Cut myself with my knives, and just how easy it is to go through meat, right? Like, I've cut through big chunks of meat and bone, like...
Oh, yeah. The kitchen. Whew.
Every once in a while, I'm like, ugh, imagine doing this to someone. Like, I could just... You know, sometimes when I'm, like, popping a joint with for like a pig or a roast, I'm like, oh man, can you just imagine like sticking a knife into someone's joint like that? And
yeah, it's kitchen is a place where disturbing thoughts can happen sometimes.
Yeah, especially when you're working with raw meat, because like every once in a while, raw meat goes from being an ingredient to being the living animal it used to be in my head. And you're like, whoa, okay, this is disturbing.
Right. Because then you're like, wait, I'm an animal.
What you're doing. I'm made of meat.
Lord Gareth comes up. And I like Nyneave snapping at Suian here. You seem in a fine temper this morning. Have you finally learned what the tower's message is? Gareth Bryn asked you to marry him? Somebody died and left you fill in the blank.
It's like, yep. She actually would like Gareth Bryn to ask her to marry him.
I think that was the first time that I was sure that I wasn't just imagining that relationship, was when this line came up. So I'm like, okay, that really is a thing that's happening, and it's mutual. Like, Gareth crushing on Suian was like, okay, I see that. But when Nyneave says this, I'm like, Suian likes him back?
Oh yeah.
This was where it clicked for me.
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit going on there.
And then Suian threatens them with, if you claim an Aja, then the Aja will peel your hide before the tower as a whole gets to you.
Right. She's just threatening to expose them, and they're like, yeah, you're not going to expose us. Anyway, moving on.
Right. But it's, again, a little bit of world building into what the Aes Sedai were before this whole end of the world business came along.
Sure.
Also, like, it's Morel that's in that story, which, again, like, needles under the skin for Nyneave in particular.
Which she doesn't know yet, though.
Well, but we have had the conversation of, like, Morel's been extra hard on her. And so I would guess that Suian noticed that tension, even if she doesn't know why, and is just leaning into it because Suian is smart and will barb you however. I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe it's a coincidence. Or maybe it's because Morel is the head of the Green. Maybe that's why Suian picked her name out of a hat to tell that story.
Entirely possible.
Because Elayne is going to become Green and have to obey Morel, so it's good that she knows what she's getting into.
And did she claim Green?
Yeah, they both do.
They both
claimed Green.
Yeah, which is so weird because...
I know, Nyneave. What? No, claim yellow. Jesus.
Right.
Why would you claim Green? But whatever.
And why the hell would Egwene claim Green? She's so blue.
Oh my god. You mean Elayne? Why would Elayne claim Green?
No, well, Elayne should be gray.
I know, she totally should. I think they all claim Green when they go on that one boat trip because it's
right.
Sexy battle Aja, I guess. I don't know why.
Because they're all thinking about men.
Yeah,
at that
basically.
Point, I guess.
It's the fuck Aja, to quote the White Tower. But yeah, that's always, Elayne is so not a Green. Egwene is so not a Green. Nyneave is so not a Green. And then the only reason Elayne picks Green is because she ends up with multiple warders. It's the dumbest reason to pick an Aja.
Which is the dumbest reason, absolutely.
It's like sticking with whatever you decided you wanted to be when you grew up from like your freshman year in high school and then never changing majors all through college. Like,
it'd be like, dude, I want to be a giraffe.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to be when I was that age.
I wanted to be a fairy.
I just wanted to be tall.
I wanted to fly. That was my whole goal. I wanted the damn wings.
That's fair.
I still want wings.
Well, that's why I wanted to be a dragon, for a while, too. Yeah. But no, when I was a kid, that was the whole thing. I wanted to be a giraffe because I wanted to be tall.
That is so adorable.
And I'm not. All right, where are we? I lost track.
Suian pinching Elayne because she can and wants to assert dominance.
And would do it with power if she had it.
But doesn't even bother trying to pretend that she didn't.
No.
It's, I find that it's like when the Two Rivers people punch someone in the face. It's like, bet you weren't expecting me to just punch you. You were expecting something clever, but no, I'm just going to hit you.
Well, and also that she didn't really have anything clever to say, so she resorted to pinching.
Yeah, for sure. And then we've got Suian getting the answer to the question that the Hall has made from Nyneave, and she's annoyed about it, and that makes me laugh.
Then Eve snuck up and listened at the window, and Swan's been doing everything she could to find that answer, and it turns out Nyneave had it the whole time. Yeah,
Suian knew the question but not the answer, and Nyneave knew the answer but not the question.
Ooh, I like that. So they were able to finally put it together here.
And they're both very grouchy about it, because that's what they do. And Elayne would be soothing them, but she's also feeling grouchy.
Right. But they don't know the true thing that they're trying. Well, do you think Suian at this point suspects that she succeeded and they're going to bring in Egwene as the Amyrlin?
See, I don't know, because it seems like she's very anxious that her plan about Egwene isn't going to work out.
Right.
But that could just be her trying to throw Nyneave off the trail. Because I feel like Suian should know that, the little hall isn't going to go back to Elida. I can't imagine that she's actually in debate about that.
Not after Logain. I don't think she knows the sisters as well as she thought she did. And they're hiding things from her.
That's fair. And so, yeah, there's a lack of trust because she didn't know, right? She has to be wondering how much she's being shut out.
Because the Saladar 6 are the ones making the decisions. And one of them's a dark friend, and the other one's a traitor for the White Tower, so...
Yeah.
It's hard to predict. So last night, Nyneave had been ready to toss out what they had learned with never a care, so that was the bowl of the winds. It had to be presented carefully. It was to be any use in swaying the hall. So they're trying to figure out how to present that information to the hall to make them... Basically, to send them to Abu Dar.
Oh, because you're... Right, because they asked to see them in private, because Elayne's like, seriously, we have to control this information.
Right. Because last night, like, in the middle of the battle, Nyneave was like, hey, we found this thing! And Shiriam was like, not now. Talk to me later. And Elayne's like, you idiot. You almost blurted out, like, we need to present this in a way that works for us, so that we get sent to Abu Dar. We don't want to be stuck here forever. Oh,
I am seeing Elayne wondering if Suian is upset or not. Oh, man. There's a lot of a mess here.
These chapters are hard to pull apart. There's so much going on. There's a lot of layers on top of each other.
Yeah.
And they mesh really well. It's pulling them apart is difficult.
See Carlinia's short hair. The only sign of their near disaster until they run Riot. And then we get a Dark Friend jackpot of information. When they're in this room, we don't get it. They get it. The Dark Friends get a jackpot of information.
Right, yes. The Dark Friends get also. Because this is all told to Shiriam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Which is just like, oh my god. I also thought we should point out that we've got Elayne getting these smiles that she expects and dreads from Aes Sedai. I think that's because of politics, not her Ter Angreal making skills. I think that's the same thing that drove Moraine to run away from the tower in New Spring. It's the whole, ooh, an Aes Sedai we could put on the throne?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Nyneave doesn't have that power. Nyneave might be inventing cool, powerful things and having information to spill out, but she's not going to be a queen.
But we know Ramonda's all about the politics, right? She's trying to make herself Amyrlin, so she is manipulating things, and she's like, ooh, here's someone with power.
And I mean, Elayne is very politically savvy, so it makes sense to, be pointed at her like that. But
And Ramonda's working against the little council, especially because there's no yellow, as we figured out last time. There's 2 blues and no yellow in their number, and Ramonda's the yellow who's like, what? Why am I not represented on this council? Because it's not the hall, it's just this little council. I should be on it. Like, Ramonda really wants to be on that council, wants to be in power, and she's not going to let them forget it.
Nope.
They tell them all about the bowl and the Abu Dar.
And it's, I thought it was interesting that Morvrin says, I expect no less news than Randolph Thor is on his way here, which is funny because that's literally what they were trying to find in the first place, was something to do with Rand and convincing these sisters about something. And that's literally the first thing that the council says is like, so is this about Rand? Because that's the only thing we want to hear about right now.
That is really all that they want to hear about.
So they explain that the bowl will affect the weather. And Morvrin is like, I doubt that because I doubt everything because she's a brown and I love her.
And they talk a little bit about, gambling, basically, about sending people to places. And Morvrin talks about how Edicina or Efella or Guisan wanted to go to Terabon, or Karuna and Bera are in the Spy in the World right now. We actually know that they're not in the Spy in the World. They're heading back to Cairhien.
Right, well, they did go to the Aiel Waste and then moved on to Cairhien. But yeah. Yeah, Edicina is one of the ones that Matt rescues from Abu Dar. Afara and Gawyn, I don't remember those names at all, so I'm assuming that they actually got taken by the Shan-Shan.
That's what I'm assuming as well, and I'm going to actually do a quick Google. I didn't pull these names up beforehand like I usually do.
Yeah, I have them highlighted, I'm assuming, because I thought I would do pre-show prep, but apparently I didn't. I just have it highlighted. I have started writing in my book, by the way. I took the plunge and started writing in my book.
Oh, are you okay with that?
Yeah, it's a freaking mass market paperback. I'll buy another one.
Okay. I don't know, some people are...
No, it's very liberating to me that I can draw and write in my books now. So I'm doing that, at least for the ones that I'm podcasting. So it's also going to be a cool time capsule of how I podcasted. So I won't do it much to my other books.
All 3 were captured by the Shan-Shan and made Domine. Arafel was left behind in Tenchiko with Edicina. were taken to Abu Dar. Gwyson adapts to the life of the Domine. When Matt Cawthon asked Teslin about the other Aes Sedai, Teslin tells him that both Myelin and Gwyson would report any escape attempt.
Yeah.
So they brainwashed.
That's so heartbreaking.
So they get sent off to try and find some things, and the two of them, they break.
3 of them go to Terrebonne, and 1 of them gets out.
Mm-hmm.
Oof. And only because of
Thanks to Matt.
I think it's funny that Carlinia says Abu Dar is no place for accepted, and I'm like, but that's literally like the seat of the kin. So it's kind of literally a place for... like, I'm just saying, like, that's where the kin are, so... All the runaways go to Abu Dar.
It's downriver from Tarlon? No, it's not. Abu Dar
is a port, so it's downriver from everyone.
Yeah. Well, okay. Fair.
But is it on the same river? I have no idea. Okay. Yeah, my geography skills fail me when it comes to the rivers of Randland.
No, because Tyr is the end of that river.
Is it the Manetheren-Drell? Oh yeah, because it is the Osendrel and Aranel when it splits around the the tower.
The Egwene leads into it. Aranin is the name of the river. Manetheren and Drell goes to Elayne.
Yeah. I don't know why the rivers just don't stick to me, but maybe because Robert Jordan gave them all the same goddamn name.
The Aranin goes to Tyr.
They're going to end them all in Drell. It'll be easy to tell apart. Thanks.
Yeah, the Manetheren Drell, that's the one that goes through White Bridge and leads down to Elayne. Abu Dar doesn't have a river leading to it, as far as I can tell. Huh. The Eldar? Yeah, the Eldar.
Like it's a port. It has to have a river.
Right. Well, you can have a port not on a river. You can have a port that leads to roads.
I feel like the geomorphology would not support building a port where there isn't a river, but there's probably an exception somewhere.
No, well then you need a water supply, because the ocean's salty.
Right. Interesting question. Can you have a port without a river? I don't think so, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. Okay, or a lake. Well, a lake has a river coming into it. Marguerite is suggesting lake ports.
Not necessarily. It could have a spring.
Oh, that's true. That's true. For some reason, I have a really hard time remembering that springs can come out underwater. It's totally a thing, but I always forget it's a thing.
The spring outside the Wine Spring Inn.
An artisanal spring.
Oh man, I was biking a couple of years ago, and I came across a deep well spring. And we drank from it, and it was delicious. The water was amazing.
That's awesome.
But it was just a deep well spring. The water was just pouring. They'd piped it, so it was like near the road, so you could drink from it. But yeah, we filled up our water bottles and everything.
Nice.
And it was like a hot summer day that we were biking,
cold.
so I like stuck my head underneath it, and it was cold, and it was so nice. And it was coming out like hard too. It was like a nice steady stream. And now we get Elayne's lie, which is the lie about the bowl requiring a man to channel. Mm-hmm. And that's how she tries to use it to bind the Aes Sedai to Rand. I don't think it really works.
No.
It never really comes up again, as far as I can tell.
No, the whole thing gets completely negated by Egwene getting raised to Amerlin. It just changes all of their fears around how this group of Aes Sedai will relate to Rand. So it becomes moot. And
the fact that they totally sabotage themselves here, or Nyneave sabotages them with their temper.
Yeah, Nyneave being Nyneave. She will never learn that simple civility sometimes will win what honesty would surely lose.
But also, don't forget, Elayne was just as nasty.
Aes Sedai control their fear.
Aes Sedai rule their fear, she said in tones that might have done for berating a drunken layabout who had staggered into your house. They do not allow it to rule them. Lead, and we will follow gladly. But you must lead, not cower. Hoping that something will make your troubles vanish. Dude, saying that to an Aes Sedai, that's arrogant as fuck.
Yeah. I mean, Nyneave gives her a hell of a run-up. I mean, that paragraph is just, like, all of her frustration coming out. And then Elayne just, like, puts this, like, icing on the cake.
Right.
God.
She's like, you are cowards. No one likes being called a coward to their face.
Yeah, first you call them fools, and then you call them cowards, and you're surprised when you get punished?
Do you know why you sit and talk? I do. You're afraid. Afraid of the Tower Divided, afraid of Rand, the Forsaken, the Black Ajah. Last night, Anya let slip that you had a plan ready in case one of the Forsaken attacked. All those circles linking right on top of a bubble of evil. Do you finally believe in that? but all mismatched, and most with more novices than Aes Sedai, because only a few Aes Sedai knew beforehand. You think the Black Ajah is right here in Saladar. You were afraid your plan might get back to Samael or one of the others. You don't trust each other. You don't trust anybody. Is that why you won't send us to Ebudar? Do you think we're Black Ajah, or run off to Rand, or...
She trails off in furious splutters and panting, because that was a hell of a speech.
That was a great rant.
I love it.
And totally right.
I love it.
And that's why they scrub pots for until forever, right? Like, until they leave, basically.
Until Egwene pardons them as part of her being raised, and she forgives everybody, all of the everything, but it's all so she can get them to Ebudar. But yeah, it's a few weeks.
After she heals Suian, she's like, so can I get out of that?
No.
And she's like, no. You think you can just do a good thing to make up for the bad things?
Yeah, no. Which, I mean, honestly, that's a really powerful lesson to learn. Like, you don't just get to... No. That would be the wrong one-to-one exchange.
At the same time, she was right.
Oh, she was definitely right, but she needs to learn. There are lessons she needs to learn.
In a lot of ways, Nyneave is kind of funny because she just avoids having to learn those lessons. Because once she's raised Aes Sedai, she just gets away with bullying everybody.
So frustrating. Yeah.
Her with the Ken.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, Elayne says, I meant to spend today working on something of my own, something not terribly inferior to what you golden children have done, I think. I wonder if you had any thoughts on what on earth she could possibly be talking about.
Nope.
Me either. We never see her invent a weave, or make ter'angreal, or teach effectively, or... We never see any mention of experiments that she does. Like, it's just this throwaway line, and I'm like, someone else is innovating with the power? Tell me more. And
I assume she's just being like, well, I'm going to go invent some stuff.
I mean...
I could have been inventing, but I had to deal with you. No.
That would be in her character, I suppose.
I think it's just the arrogant, like, well, if you weren't interrupting my time, I could be just as awesome as you, inventing all these cool things.
Yeah, I really want to think that there's something going on with Elayne that makes her worth being on the page, even though she tries really hard to convince me she shouldn't be in the book. I want there to be a reason why this character exists. Elayne and Theodrin swear fealty to Egwene and are not very influential, but they help her begin to get her own power amongst the other Aes Sedai, and Elayne is really the driving force between the two of them on that, but I don't ever see it make a huge difference, so...
Yeah, I think her point is always just to show that someone who doesn't like Elayne can still serve her.
Egwene, yeah.
Egwene,
yeah. I suppose that's true, and it's nice that Theodrin isn't all by herself in her singular status, because she's not one of the Supergirls. It would be weird if she was a loner, because then I'd be like, well, are you going to join the gaggle of people? But this way she's in a match set that sits off to the side. Because I believe that Elayne survives the last battle, so no doubt she'll be a cool Aes Sedai in the Fourth Age.
Well, and the Supergirls ruined their chance to be the in-between, right? With this, because they were going to be raised just the same as Elayne and Theodrin were.
Yeah.
But Nyneave blew up, and they were like, yeah, we're not going to raise you. You're going to scrub pots instead.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God. I had an experience like that in 7th grade, I think. It was 8th grade, but there was a coveted drama role in this school-wide play that I had expected I would get since 1st grade. I figured when I got to 8th grade, I would get that role, and then I fucked up and made my teacher mad at me the 3 days before that role got cast. So my acting friend, who was also really wanted that role, she got given it, and I was told very expressly it was because I had not held my temper, and if I had, I would have had the culmination of my 8-year ambition to be that character, and it was very frustrating.
Yeah, I bet. Lesson to learn.
So that's this here. I can empathize so strongly with this angst.
Well, and I'm just going to read this last paragraph whole heart, because this is the shortest POV I think we get in the entire book.
Before you...
Or the entire series, maybe.
Before you do that, I just want to say, apologies from Nyneave were snow in midsummer. Highly appropriate, given what's going to happen with the weather. Oh my
god, what's going on? Yeah.
And Nyneave growing up.
The snowbank.
And then also, Elayne is thinking about how she's going to dominate all the Aes Sedai on their knees. She's getting a little bit kneel or be knelt vibes there at the end. Just, she's got some arrogance on her own.
No.
Just like I've never been angry before.
No.
Yeah.
Nope, never. I don't believe
But
you.
otherwise, yeah, this is a very excellent readout POV from Shiriam.
Shiriam turned from where she had been watching the young women through a crack in the fence and began walking up the narrow alley with its fitful crop of withered weeds and stubble. I regret that, considering Nyneave's words and her tone, and Elayne's, the wretched child, she added, somewhat. Carlinia sneered. She was very good at that. Do you want to tell accepted what fewer than 24 Aes Sedai know? Her mouth clicked shut at a sharp look from Shiriam. Their ears where we least expect them, Shiriam said softly. Those girls are right about one thing, Morven said. Althor turns my bowels to water. What options are left to us with him? Shiriam was not sure they had not long since run out of options.
She goes doubly for her as for the council.
Right. And I assume what they're trying to avoid telling them is that they've chosen Egwene as Amyrlin's seat.
Right. They don't want that news getting out before they've actually secured and raised said Egwene.
But if they told her that, I mean, I'm sure that the results of the meeting would have been very different.
Yeah. You just don't let that information out at all. I regret that somewhat.
This is a tough chapter. I gotta say, like, I felt like it was, it doesn't flow very well.
Agreed.
That it's just a lot of, I think pile of sand is kind of appropriate because Jordan just sort of piled facts up in this chapter and dumped them on us.
Yeah. And it's like when you're trying to crawl up a sand dune, and if you look up, you just feel that you're sliding back the whole time. Like, I'm never going to get to the top.
This was just like, no, there's just so many details in this chapter, and they don't, this to me feels sluggish.
Yes, this is definitely our first hint of the pacing of the slog, where you're really just looking around and getting way more detail on the grains of sand in the scene than you actually need.
Yeah, mentioning all these characters that are only ever brought up here, or maybe one other time, that sort of thing.
Yeah, but a lot of setup. A lot of things that grow. These seeds are getting planted that grow into such bigger things, and it's like, is this a red herring or is this a major plot development? Like, you don't know yet.
And if anything, it's like I feel like I missed so much in that chapter because there is, all these little grains of sand that I feel like I could have picked up on.
It's a very information-rich chapter for all that it's a bunch of people sniping at each other.
Right.
So yeah, what are you drinking tonight?
Tonight, Ecliptic Sunray Juicy IPA, seasonal.
Ooh, those are good. Ecliptic beers are good.
Ecliptic does a good job. They're a local brewery.
I am drinking Two Towns Pacific Pineapple cider.
Ooh.
Local to where I live.
A good pineapple cider is tasty.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the pineapples are not local to where I live. They're from Costa Rica. But the cider is brewed local to where I live.
Oh man, so we've been, I just want to put this on recording, but we've been dealing with fires in Oregon and smoky skies, and I think you're still in the middle of the smoke right now?
Oof, yeah, it has been dark as twilight since about 2 in the afternoon. The air has been thickly amber to the point that it makes my lights in my house look weird to my eyes. There's ash drifting in the air, and these fires are all dozens to hundreds of miles away to the north and east of me. So not from the gender reveal party in California, but from downed trees and lightning and generally living in a tinderbox and having really weird weather. Normally our weather comes from the ocean, on land and blows from west to east. For some fucking reason, we're getting a 5 times in a century event where the wind goes from east to west, and it's just been disgusting here today.
We don't like getting air from the rest of the continental United States. Your air is gross. Keep it to yourself. We like our ocean air, please.
Yes.
It's the whole point of being out here, is we get the trade winds that blow the fresh air to us all the time, and all the East Coasters get all the Midwest smog.
Precisely. So this is just nasty. And, like, there's people,
bad, yeah.
like, under emergency evacuation orders just over in, like, Mackenzie River area, which is, you know, not that far from me. It's across the Willamette Valley from me, but it's still, like, I've been to the Mackenzie River a lot, so that's kind of scary.
Yeah, they turned our power off for probably 5 hours last night.
Yeah, I heard that. Hasn't happened down here yet.
Yeah, I think the wind was just so bad they were concerned about downed power lines creating sparks. And so they just went ahead and turned power off for a couple hours. But we got an email saying when it was going to come back on, so I don't think it was from down power lines, but who the hell knows?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you're right. It was same as in California, you know, rolling blackouts where they tell people, hey, be prepared to do without power for a few hours because, like, it's seriously, you would rather it be a controlled outage than the alternative.
No, and we actually ended up hanging out with because I'm in an apartment building, so all the neighbors came out of their apartments when the power went off, which is something uniquely interesting about, I think about pre-power worlds when, Timber's making a bunch of noise eating his dinner, by the way. Of course, it's been out for hours. Anyway, it's we are 3 minutes into, we started 2 minutes into recording, he started eating. He's had hours to eat that food. And now he's like, oh, you're talking? I'm going to go ahead and start eating.
He's on to you.
Son of a bitch. He knows. I know. He knows I'm going to be sitting here for a while. He's like, all right, fine, I'll eat now. So anyway, we went over, I think about how, like, more social people would be if we didn't have our little computer boxes to sit in front of all day.
Oh, yeah.
And I see that, because I went out and the neighbors, we all got together and we ended up playing a game of spoons. One of the neighbors below us, like, came out and yelled at us because we were, like, banging on the floor to grab spoons. Like, that's, if you ever played spoons, you know, it's a bit of a violent game. And so we got yelled at. And we were like, it's 9:30, come on, and the power's out. What the fuck else are we gonna do?
Seriously.
So, we were that. You know, there's always one neighbor that ruins the fun. Let's have a good time. Power's out.
Meanwhile, I'm trying to buy a house in the country.
How's that going? Tell me about that.
Things are continuing to go good. We're supposed to close on the 1st of October. So.
Whew, that's coming up real fast.
Yeah, we've been packing already. Because, and then I had to tell him, you know, like, we're not, I had to tell Brandon, we're not, I've been booked for the first few days of October since before we were going to buy a house. Like, we cannot move that weekend. I'm already booked for SpoilerCon. I cannot be running around with inconsistent internet and who knows what space. Like, no.
Right. Yeah, no, that's crazy. I'd make you, like, come here.
Yeah, it's just so, yeah, that's insane. But, yeah, first half of October is, in theory, going to be us moving from being college kids in the city to being homeowning graduated adults in the country, which is a very surreal life improvement to be doing while the world is both literally and figuratively on fire.
My world's on fire. How about yours? It's the way I like it. And I'll never get bored. Hey, now.
This is fine.
Every time someone says the world's on fire, I cannot help but sing All-Star in my head. And you know what? I hate it. I hate it so much. Such a terrible song.
We didn't start the fire.
See, that's better.
Fun fact, that was the song that was number 1 the day I was born.
Cool.
Yeah. That was a weird high school assignment. Was what song was the most popular when you were born, according to some random fucking chart.
I need to get back in the kitchen so I can cook again. That was my exercise.
God. Yeah, that's one of the things I'm really excited about moving out of town is moving into a place and actually, like, having a proper size kitchen. I will not have the excuse to be on my ass 23 hours a day in front of a computer quite as much.
Trust me, you'll find an excuse.
Oh, I know I will, but I will actually have alternatives because right now there literally aren't. Between one thing and another, there just isn't a whole lot of things I could be doing otherwise. So
right. No, that's something I've actually regretted is not having a lot of space during the pandemic because I would definitely would like to spend some of my time brewing beer or working on pottery or doing a few of the other little tasks, but there's just no way in my little apartment.
Just, fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah. So really it's just, well, I can be in the bed, or I can be in the chair in front of my computer, or I can be standing in my postage stamp kitchen cooking.
Yeah.
Those are my real three choices. So things have opened up a little bit, but honestly, I think Portland has opened up way too much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like looking around being like, you people are acting like this is done. It's worse than it's ever been.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I know. Brandon and I are just like, well, I guess we might be able to go out in like a year or two.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So just waiting for the vaccine, which I'm sure will come before the election.
Yeah, you think I'm taking a vaccine that just got poofed into existence for political expediency? Think again. Somebody else can beta taste that fucking shit. Beta test. I can do words. Anyway.
Listen, if God didn't want us to eat meat, he wouldn't have made animals out of it.
No comment. But yeah, it's you don't make things that tasty and then not eat them.
Right. No, I do love meat. Although I do agree that eating less meat is good for you and good for the environment. Eat less meat.
Oh yeah, you have to be able to. You should be eating meat in proportion to how much cost it exacts on the environment to create, which means that you should be eating very little, very expensive meat.
I was reading an interesting article talking about how, the fact is getting rid of meat wouldn't actually help the environment
not at
all that much.
Yeah, no. No.
Because the animals eat a lot of our waste product that we can't eat. Like pigs. Pigs are a huge source of they just eat our leftovers, right? And a lot of the cows turn grass and graze land that would be no good for farming. Mm-hmm. They turn that land into edible food.
Yeah.
And the reality is, to get the protein that you get from meat, you essentially have to, you can grow different plants, but soybeans are about the only good replacement for the protein you get from animals. And soybeans take up just as, actually aren't that efficient compared to other plants.
It's just when you try to make a shit ton of meat available for the lowest possible price and hang every other aspect of it, and you end up with monocrops and concentrated animal feeding operations and people who eat way more meat than the human body can fucking process. That's a problem.
Yes. We have to fix the systems. It's just that eliminating meat for me is not the solution.
Yeah, no.
Right? Changing the way we produce meat, changing the way we consume meat.
Yeah.
Is absolutely part of the solution. Eliminating the eating of meat, I don't think would be effective.
I do appreciate people who are hardcore vegan because they counterbalance the people who will never consider changing their diets at all. And I'm like, well, okay, fine. That's, you do you, whatever it takes. But yeah, I just refuse to eat meat that's not from super local, awesome sources. And then I get plenty for how much I crave and also feel like I'm supporting the right changes in the system. It's just make it really expensive and then you think about your choices.
I'm not saying you have to give it up, but it should be, you should eat a fraction of what you currently eat.
Yeah, just from a health standpoint, don't even, opinions.
But food's one of those things that it's so hard to tell people what they should eat because we all have our own digestive issues. We all have our own nutritional issues. We all have our own social issues. Food is tied to all of those things. I mean, food is one of those things, everything from politics and food deserts to environment to it's just food and food production and food supply is such a complicated topic.
To say nothing of the ecosystem services or things you can get out of raising animals, right? Like you were mentioning waste products, right? Or rangeland that we can't grow other food crops on. It's part of managing our soil health and our water health. They're part of that.
Right. But we're doing it on such a scale that we're absolutely destroying things that we shouldn't be destroying. So the scale, for me, it's the scale is the problem, not the fact of eating meat. It's the scale that we're producing meat is the issue.
Which is it's you don't want to judge people's choices, but you also want to educate. Be do you have to make that choice? But at the same time, you don't want to be condescending and judging people because that's really frustrating for everyone involved.
And then we also have to survive, right? There's a lot of people on low budgets who, have to get the food they can get, and that's what's available for them.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Bring classism into it. And
they don't... Oof. Right. Yeah, right. Veganism is something that is extremely time-consuming and expensive and hard to do when you're working 2 minimum wage jobs.
And in a food desert.
Kids.
Yeah, this is why you cannot go around judging everyone by the same metric. Like, you do not fucking know. And even if you did know, you probably wouldn't be making that judgment.
Yeah, I know Ogier is making the point the cost of meat is artificially low, which is true, but that doesn't mean people then don't have to buy it, because that's what's cheap.
That's what frustrates me, is the artificially low price. Because then you have entire systems set up for the wrong standards. And it's like, how do we even start with this?
The same is true of...
Gas?
Gas and oil, yeah.
I absolutely roll that argument right on over into fossil fuels. God, the artificially low price. It's like, no, that's not how little it costs.
Yeah, if we subsidized renewable energy on the same level that we're subsidizing...
Oh my God.
Gasoline.
Yeah, you see the graphs and you're like, well, I understand why our energy situation is the way it is. Going to subsidize this that much and subsidize this that tiny little bit? Like, oh my God. It's really infuriating that us as individual consumers are told that all the power is in our hands, and then you look at where the subsidies are going and it's like, really? Is my choice of light bulb actually the deciding factor here? I don't buy it. Even is my choice to eat a certain kind of meat the deciding factor? No, it's not.
There's been I've actually read a lot about how companies made a real push to push the personal responsibility of climate change onto consumers rather than the companies who are forcing us to make certain choices.
Such a false straw man.
Right. And it's like, I don't want to deny that people have personal responsibility, but at the same time, like, companies being like, it's your responsibility to save the environment, while they're like dumping oil into the seas and producing, like,
leaving the lights on for acres of parking lot that nobody's occupying.
And selling me products that have like 7 layers of plastic around it before I can get to the USB chip that the thing. Like, there's so many layers of
planned obsolescence of appliances.
Right.
Unrepairable technology.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?
Thank you